Yann, how are you doing? Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Gilad. Very great pleasure. So glad that we reconnect.
Listen, I've been following your career and what you've been doing with Otonomo, I would say since the beginning.
Mhm.
I've been meeting you in all kinds of conferences all around the world. I think that the latest one was in one of the events that you sponsored in London and before that in New York. And that was actually focusing on embedded insurance.
Mhm.
But that's not really your main thing, or is it still?
Embedded insurance is part of our product thesis. But so, by the way, the company is Otonomi. But
Sorry.
there's another company, Otonomo. So sometimes people get confused. But yeah, Otonomi is dedicated to the cargo market, so logistics, transportation, and our distribution model has embedded as part of it, right? So it is relevant what you just mentioned. That's correct that we are embedded in a number of cargo platforms. So if anything, through API or very, fast and, kind of very sophisticated integration, we can make the user experience, pretty simple, pretty easy to use. And that's what you want, right? You don't want the customers to have friction in terms of quoting and binding a policy. So generally, like embedded insurance, a great value. This is one of the distribution model, not the only one though.
Well, this is what I love about this podcast. I can just make everything very, very confusing and jump directly to the third topic, which is embedded insurance and how your journey started from SaaS and moved to an MGA.
Mhm.
So now that I got the attention of everyone or lost most of the audience, let's go back to the beginning
Mhm.
and talk about what is Otonomi, which hopefully now I pronounce correctly.
Mhm.
And how did you start? What was the journey? And let's start with the basic.
Mhm.
As an MGA, what do you provide today?
If you allow me, I can also give further background, right? It can be interesting to
Please.
see how I get there. So I'm Yann, CEO and co-founder of Otonomi. I'm a French national, but really I spent my entire career in US. I moved to New York in 2003, so 21 years ago. And I've been here for 2 decades, right? So it's been an extremely, encouraging and ambitious journey, in the financial services, insurance, technology. I worked a lot on supply chain financing, commodities trading, and technology integration. And I essentially made a move into ventures innovation in 2017 when I joined the innovation lab at a large Fortune 500 company downtown Manhattan, and that's where I discovered parametric insurance and those new model, right? It's quantitative, data-driven type of insurance. So I fell in love with it, and it's interesting that COVID disrupted, the whole market, right? Global trade, global transportation was upside down, and that created opportunity for a new InsurTech or new technology firm to come in and propose new model and essentially help the industry kind of leapfrog, right? So I think we can understand that this is in the time of hardship that people make pretty drastic decision, and where the best ideas are actually arising. So I'm very glad that I took the leap of faith, right? I quit my corporate 9-to-5 job and decided to be full time on the model on the project. Yeah, so and then kind of the light bulb moment, right? The awakening time was the Suez Canal blockage in 2021. When we saw the vessel being stuck, in the middle of the canal, and we decided that our parametric insurance automation platform was going to be dedicated to transportation, logistics, and maritime type of insurance. Yeah, so in terms of the beginning, you said, we were a SaaS model, so it was all about utilizing Web3 smart contract to automate policy admin, claims, adjudication, payments. which is, by the way, still the backbone of our platform. We kind of decided to shift our business model to an MGA model because myself, I'm a risk manager by trade, and I always thought that kind of providing the best technology products is one side of the same coin as managing the portfolio yourself, right? You want to, I view, I have more passion into bringing a risk engine, an underwriting model that I can manage myself with my underwriting partners, and while I'm providing the SaaS platform on the back end in order to automate, fast track, streamline, and whatever else. So we did pivot during 2021. We went through some sort of startup accelerator pre-seeds, in New York. It was still COVID, it was remote, but we eventually find enough traction, and we consulted with advisor in the space, InsurTech advisor, insurance specialist, and they said, if you want to go after some sort of automation platform in the space, you're going to be competing with Snapsheet, Guidewire, and very big behemoth, and that's going to be a long journey, right? You're going to essentially spend a lot of capital to potentially never take off, and that's how we actually made the conclusion of going the MGA route. Yeah.
Interesting, because I have a contradiction view to that, and it really depends on what is the product.
Exactly.
And it's very, very hard to grow an MGA unless you have a niche product or that you already have a distribution. Because the main thing about insurance, especially for startups or everyone, you make sure that you have a unique distribution channel and know how to go from there, which all the big ones, the way that they grow is by acquiring other books and improving on them, right? So when you're starting an MGA, unless you actually have a very interesting technology to improve underwriting or claims, and I would argue that you should start with the claims and then go back to understand your underwriting, but we can table that for a different time. But the niche product and the distribution, that's key. And as an investment banker nowadays, I look at, okay, great. So, you have your investors. I'm responsible for you, but you have a fiduciary responsibility for your investors. And what's easier to reach that liquidity that they will push you to? Is that going to be an MGA that will be acquired by an insurance company? Or is that going to be a SaaS company that is going to sell to another one of the companies that you mentioned earlier, or someone else, or even a PE that wants to enjoy that cash flow or improve and flip? But sorry, I've been blathering. This is me interviewing you, not the other way, or just throwing information. Let's talk a little bit more about Caro. How did you recognize that problem? Because I love this because it's logistics, and that's how modern insurance started, right? Lloyd's of London, table, coffee. What's the probability that you will never see your ship back at port?
Yeah, no. So I mean, there's so much to unpack from what you just said. So I appreciate your feedback. Let's start from the top. So I agree with you. The original sin from insurance was at Lloyd's, a coffee shop, in the city of London, essentially discussing the Commonwealth, import exports out of India and the rest of the network, where they wanted to make sure that they could insure some of the maritime transit. So the first policies were essentially marine policy, which is pretty interesting in the 1600s. Obviously, there's a lot that happened in between, right? A lot of changes, but not as much as you think. And so that's my central point. What did not change from the initial paperwork, this legalese that they put together back 400 years ago, is the fact that cargo delay, so delayed shipments, were never recognized and they were completely excluded from marine policies. And that hasn't changed for centuries now. So the tipping point in terms of us, having the reckoning of why we're doing what we're doing in the space is the following. We essentially converting an exclusion into a monetized insurance product for the customer. So in so many words, what I'm saying is we recognize the cargo delay as being an excluded peril within 100% of the policies and decided to go on the route of, okay, let's make it a marketable product for the customers to be buying on top of the regular cargo policy. And this is what we did. So that's what makes it so niche and so important for the customers and the market and the underwriters is we don't have any competitors as of now. Nobody is doing this cargo delay insurance the way we're doing it. And we can essentially address a very acute pain point in the industry, which we assess as being around $50 billion of protection gap every year. So it's not a small problem, right?
That's a lovely niche.
That's the genesis of why we're doing what we're doing. Now, in terms of your narrative of saying SaaS versus MGA, I think it's debatable. I think I agree with certain points, and I might disagree with others. Where I'm going to be agreeing with you is when you think about you take a top-down approach. If you want to talk about unicorn, right, and then Silicon Valley and VCs, they always want to go for the moonshots or the North Star. It's hard to actually count the number of unicorn MGAs, right? There's a number of them, but there's not thousands of them, right? So this is true that there's probably some sort of ceiling in terms of valuation. Now, if we have enough room to grow to several hundred millions of valuation, I think that's could be a tremendous win for us. So I'm not shying away from that kind of valuation. And I also agree that most of the exit strategies are acquisition from large carriers, large wholesale brokers, or Amwins, like a big fan of those MGA models. I can name names for quite many minutes.
Okay,
but,
yeah.
But my point is there's some limitation in terms of how much you can scale being an MGA. Having said that, what we currently adopting is creating what we call a SaaS plus. So we do the traditional MGA, which is commission, on premium, and we can add some profit sharing and whatnot. What we're creating right now is a SaaS model on top of the MGA premium, because we're providing such exceptional level of analytics, automation, and also visibility to the customers. Right? Customers needs insurance product to protect their assets, their risks. That's correct. But those customers, which are logistics and cargo owners, they need to know what's going on, right? They need to see the trends. They need to see the charts. They need to see the analytics to help them forecast and predict. And I believe that we're well positioned to add some, SaaS value to their day-to-day insurance booking, right? So it's not just a web page where you click and you bind. Really, what we're bringing is a full platform. So again, we're kind of early stage in getting the full model being rolled out, but I'm actually taking your input and I find it valuable because we believe that this SaaS plus MGA model is actually one of the future model that people are going to be adopting in the future. Yeah.
Use cases. Let's touch about that so people can understand better your product. Because when you talked about delay in cargo and shipping, the first thing that sprang to mind is perishables, right? Food. Now, beside food, I don't know, flowers or something like that. What other use cases do you have? Who are your current customers? How do they use your policy?
Correct. So our current customers are what we call time-critical logistics. They are freight forwarders, they're logistics companies that are essentially dedicated to offer service when there's time criticality to the shipment, right? So there's a whole span and market of what we call general cargo, which is going by ocean for the most part, and there's a lot of air parcel. And the time duration is somehow critical, but not as important. The niche market where we evolve right now, and then we have a new product coming in, by the way, we can talk about later, is the time critical freight. So within time critical freight, the first primary risk factor that the logistics care about and the cargo owners, which is the end client, is time, just-in-time delivery, right? Because they have potential penalties, or they have potential spoiled goods, or other problem that can be arising from this delay. So let's talk about the 4 industries where our customers are finding the most value within our product. So the first one is, as you said, perishables. If anything, that's not the biggest one, but let's start there because you mentioned it. And within perishable markets, a lot of it is produce, fruit, vegetables. That's correct. Flower market, as you also pointed out, is huge. And we're currently working on potential deals in Ecuador and Colombia, which are second and largest markets. Actually, Colombia is second, Ecuador third. Netherlands is the first one. And it's a huge export market, and it's 100% time critical. And preemption and spoilage of goods is always very dramatic and very, very damaging to the business. And seafoods, meats, and other perishables. So you get the full picture. The second largest industry that we're helping is life science. Life science is the whole bucket of pharmaceuticals, vaccines, blood sample, medical specimen, right? So sometimes organ transplant, which is a little more, kind of emotional or even dramatic type of business, but everything that needs to be a certain timeline and that has a cold chain, angle, time critical logistics is actually the most suited vertical. Third vertical, which we don't necessarily think about, is what we call critical automotive, which is critical. What's actually a very great pain that those automotive manufacturing company are actually suffering right now is what we call line stoppage. When there's a missing critical part in an assembly line, every hour that passes without the part, the line is actually shut down and costs $100,000 per hour. And sometimes it can be 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, completely disastrous. Your existing traditional cargo policy doesn't cover any of it because there's no damage, right? So it's not a damage-based losses, it's actually a business interruption loss. And that's where Otonomi is helping, right? Because we don't have exclusion based on non-damage. We actually include any type of financial losses as long as there's a delay that can be recognized on independent basis. And the fourth sector is the aviation aerospace. So we are announcing some integration with what we call MROs and AOG. So MRO stands for maintenance, repair, overhaul, and they are specialized logistics company that essentially cater to aviation parts, replacements, repair. So you can think about, let's say, British Airways, nose landing gears is bust, and then what you have is what we call an AOG situation, aircraft on the ground. When the aircraft is stranded for 6 hours, 8 hours, full day, again, 1.5 million penalties. And none of the cargo insurance can help you except for our product because we only care about the delay of shipments. So it's a big market, right? It seems like it's a niche market. Really is nearly $6 trillion of assets that are time critical every year that are moved, and that needs to have the right delay insurance behind them.
I was thinking about, so most of the things that you just described, or to be precise, the one that is, what was it, aircraft on the ground or for the aviation, it seems to me something that should be covered by business interruption, because because they are missing a device or a part of the plane, that's a critical intel to their business.
Yeah, so it's a good point. Having said that, what is happening is it's a hot potato situation. Nobody owns the risk. Nobody's wanting to take the loss, right? So is the logistics responsible of the delay? Is the shipper, the cargo owner responsible? Or is the receiver that can claim, the carrier's liability or whatnot? So there's always like, a 3-party, 4-party issues. Nobody knows who needs to pay. So reality, our product, which is a parametric product, right? So just to remind the audience, parametric means when there's a specific parameter that gets triggered, then the payment is automatic. In our case, is just the delayed shipment. So we measure the time, the expected time of arrival. We record the actual. We add 12 hours, and if it's beyond 12 hours, we pay out, right? It's kind of that simple and binary. And that what makes it so transparent and so easy to use for the customer.
And how does it affect your claims structure?
Yeah, I mean, the claim is almost like a cuss word in our space, because parametric claims means you just need the system to recognize the parameter or trigger, and then the rest is automated. So to be completely, transparent, there's a little bit of adjudication. It takes, on average 20 to 30 minutes to verify, because we want to have like a different set of eyes looking at the API trigger, making sure that we have the right, information. Sometimes there can be some, system failures, whatnot, but the adjudication is nothing like sending an examiner, assess the loss, evaluate the damage, and spend 3, 6, 9 months of paperwork and maybe not getting paid, right? So that evaporates. Our claims process is really this one trigger, quick verification on the screen, and payout.
That's very good. How long have you been an MGA? So we can talk, we're not going to talk about your loss ratio, or I'll be happy to hear about different claims examples, but we don't really need to expose any data about it.
Yeah, no, so I can talk about a few case studies that we run, and we had also like a pilot where we had one claim. I can, happily give you some data points. So we received the MGA license last year, right? And we signed the Lloyd's binder last year. So that was essentially when we became a Lloyd's cover holder. Took some time, as you probably see for yourself, from a 2021 prototype to a partnership with Lloyd's in early 2023.
Which syndicate who is backing you up?
Yeah, so we have Apollo, Greenlight as our syndicate.
Of course.
And we have some reinsurance companies in US, RLI and ICW. Very grateful for their support. Great guys, super smart guys. So I'm very glad that they're taking the risk and the leap of faith with us. It's always, it's always like a tricky conversation for a new product category, but they see the potential. So in terms of claims, our life portfolio doesn't have any claims, right? We ran a pilot last year in the pharmaceutical space, about 2,200, shipment cargo, and out of those 2,000 plus shipments, we had one claim, provisional claims, which got us the loss ratio on 10-15%. So it was, pretty impressive performance.
That's good.
But again, this is one section of a portfolio, right?
Yeah.
In other case studies, right? So we mentioned the AOG, which is aircraft on the ground. So the aviation case, there's a lot of those claims that, essentially can be paid out in 24 hours, and that could relieve the customers on potential losses due to delays, right? So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. In our case, we have limits up to $250,000, so $250,000 per shipment per conveyance, and it's generally like incredibly helpful for them because they're chasing large claims, sometimes $1 million, $2 million for months and years. They'd rather have like $250,000 in the pockets, within a week, and then move on, right? So this is also like the mindset and the philosophy that we have. We can help them with liquidity and quick, treasury management because the payment is fast, and that's actually not to be discounted into the business model. The second case study that we analyzed was flour exports. I mentioned it a couple of times. The Colombian market is very vibrant, right? It's beyond $2 billion worth of export of flour in US and in Europe. And 1.5 out of the 2 billion is actually generated in one day every year on the 14th of February, which is Valentine's Day.
Valentine's.
So, running into the February month, Colombia is absolutely like upside down in order to get the logistics right. So we kind of bracing up for the next Feb 14, right, in order to be able to actually service that market. And negotiating starts in the summer, actually. So it's a very long process.
Cool. So we talked about the journey, we talked about the product, also how much you cover, and the benefit of having parametric insurance in terms of cost of claim and having that organization. So you still have a very thin layer of a claim team, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not pure go through as we see with the other companies that, well, not all the parametrics have that, but for many smaller organizations, actually not smaller, the bigger organizations that don't have enough bandwidth to deal with the organization, they just know if it's a small claim, we'll just pay for it. And in a different podcast, I will talk about fraud detection within claims, the concept of leakage, and other smart. We'll dive more into the claims. When you're looking on the cargo, what's the future? You're going to launch a new product soon, then another one, and you're going to grow the business. How is that going to look like?
Yeah, no, it's a very busy pipeline that we have in product roadmap. Right, just to recap, and thanks for giving the stage on that one. Our existing product, which is live with the customers, is what we call time critical air delay. So it's an air cargo, air freight, a lot of expedited, express shipments. The way I described it, automotive, medical specimen, pharmaceuticals, and so forth. The next few months, we're going to be rolling out a maritime cargo delay, ocean freight, which obviously is one of the most exciting products, right? From our conversation with freight forwarder and logistics expert, we talk about a 40 to 50x bigger market that we're addressing. So right off the bat, we have tremendous amount of interest. It's also probably 5 to 8x riskier than our time critical air. So the underwriting model that we finalizing with our actuary and underwriters is essentially like going through the nitty-gritty about like accumulation, concentration, any type of risk management practice, any type of scaling factors that we can add depending on seasonality, geography, or some crisis model that we can model in the space, like the Baltimore bridge collapse that happened a month ago. It's not something we can forecast, but how can we risk mitigate when that happens in the best way? So this is all those risk management and underwriting framework that we're establishing right now. But that's when it's done right. What you want to see is essentially like a very fast scaling of the model. Now we get almost like 4 or 5 brokers that are ready to open the floodgates, because they're getting the question almost on a weekly basis: can you insure me for delays? And the answer has been no for a long time, and now we're glad that we can answer in the affirmative. So that's a very exciting project and product that we're rolling out in the next few months. The thing that's absolutely like mind-boggling is I can backtrack for the past 30 days. I've been on an international business trip for the past month, starting in London. I think we ran into each other about a month ago. I went to Paris, I have family in Paris, and then I went to Singapore, met with large tier 1 brokers, underwriters, then Hong Kong, same thing. And last week I was in Mexico. So, you can
Oh,
tell, look at
wow.
my face that I'm still recovering from the jet lag. But the demand for the maritime products, as I said, is absolutely fantastic. So very excited about it. I don't want to overpromise. This could be some technology integration plus some, signature on the contract before going live, but it seems to be very promising.
So I know that we are about to run out of time, but you basically brought up a topic that is very, very interesting. You know, reading the, let's say it, well, reading the news and looking at the Straits of Hormuz and what's happened, well, the Persian Gulf, what's going on with near the Suez Canal with all the Houthis, the Baltimore accident, there is a lot of risk new by, let's call it bad actors risk, and by, I don't know, did they decide already who's responsible for the accident in the Baltimore or
Well,
not yet?
they just announced general average, and I don't have the
So,
full detail, but it's being adjudicated as we speak. I think they nominated like a head of adjudication from whatever company, but yeah, it's in the work right now.
so how is that going to roll? Are you familiar with that, or am I asking the wrong question here?
Um, I'm not going to be being the expert in general average. I'm glad to get back to you on that one, but I'm not going to
Okay.
be able to give you the full story there.
So general average, there are going to be the groups, there are going to be the different players.
Mhm,
Everyone is going somehow to pitch in
mhm.
because that's going to be in the billions, not just to rebuild the bridge, but all of the commodities that were
Yeah,
lost.
liabilities, vessel liabilities, bridge liabilities, cargo loss, damage. Fortunately,
Life.
people died, so this is, obviously a pretty sad and dramatic event. Yeah, so the maritime product is going to be a very exciting product to be rolled out. We have other products in the air freight where we're combining, traditional cargo and also delay cargo insurance in one bundle. We call it Cargo Plus. So people are going to have a central point to purchase the Cargo Plus delay insurance within Otonomi. So that's been asked by customers. Very glad that we can utilize our partners in the space to enhance our product as well. And then, so we always, looking for strategic partners in the space in terms of distribution, potential, capacity providers, so insurance, reinsurance, syndicates. Glad to talk to anyone who's intrigued about product, and we have some expansion in a variety of countries. So always glad to have this conversation, and we are also looking at strategic capital provider in terms of our capital management in the next 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
So glad to talk to investors, VCs, and kind of explain our product roadmap and whatever is exciting about Otonomi.
Well, at this point, you don't need to share your financial information. We'll have that conversation later.
Yeah.
But beside these people, how should they reach out to you beside LinkedIn? Email, uh,
Yeah.
Instagram? What's the best way to reach
Only
you?
only TikTok. I'm kidding.
On TikTok.
So my email is yann@otonomi.ai. So YANN at OTONOMI.ai. And I'll respond within 24 hours. I promise.
If not, there is a parametric trigger that will set a
Exactly.
claim, and then you'll get your
Slap in the
free
face.
text back. Slap in
Slap
the
in the
face.
face.
Brilliant. Cool. Great. So let me ask you the last question that I'm asking everyone in kind of different variations. You are now at fourth year or third year of your journey. What advice would you give yourself as you started this journey?
I think the one single advice that would be the most important for me is to be more customer centric.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, there's like 70 to 80% of the founders that are product and engineers, right? And they like their product. They like to have those features and those fancy, solution, and they kind of forget about customers' needs. And I think we spent a good amount of time focusing on product too much. In the past year or so, much more on customers, and we see a drastic difference in terms of traction and also satisfaction about the solution that we provide. So that's probably the central point of what I would be telling myself, back in 2021.
Fantastic. Yann, thank you very much for joining me, answering my silly questions, and hopefully answering questions that our audience have.
Thanks a lot for having me. We'll be in touch very soon.
Ciao.